It's Friday, March 29th. I'm your host, Paul Joseph Watson. This is InfoWars Nightly News.
Tonight, propaganda pushes liberty lovers as terrorists. Veterans evicted by the very government they fought for. And the Cyprus haircut with Gerald Celente. All this and more on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Top story tonight, Fox drama, Constitutionalists work for terrorist serial murderers by Kurt Nimmo. Fox, the entertainment network founded by Rupert Murdoch and Barry Diller, is working with the federal government and the Southern Poverty Law Center in a concerted effort to demonize Americans identifying themselves as constitutionalists. And this is a new program that follows in the vein, of course, as we documented over the years, repeated, sustained attempts to demonize anybody who believes in the Constitution, libertarians, conservatives, across the political spectrum, you name it. Of course, 2011, we had the DHS-funded study, which came out and said that Americans who were, quote, reverential of liberty were likely terrorists. Then, of course, before that, we had the 2009 MIAC report, which demonized constitutionalists, Ron Paul supporters, gold owners, people who flew the Gadsden flag as terrorists. And it's been a sustained attack over the past several years. And here to talk more about that, how the entertainment industry is characterizing liberty lovers as extremists, is Jakari Jackson.
The cell tower linked to your wife is near a roadside motel on Highway 31.
Typically, there's 5 to 6 agents per safe house in a designated area away from the other guests.
I'm thinking an M17 or my micro Uzi with a silencer.
You ex-military? I don't know. We're better than that.
They were both raised by militia.
Well, constitutional extremists, to be accurate.
The following, a Fox TV series starring Kevin Bacon, is the latest television program to demonize the militia. I'm Jakari Jackson with an InfoWars News Bulletin. Even though the Constitution guarantees the rights of a well-regulated militia, that has not stopped the mass media from portraying the militia in a negative light. Let's take a look at these clips where the hero fights militia antagonist.
Next Thursday, to save a young boy's life, Michael Weston takes on a militia.
They are locked down tight.
An unknown number of heavily armed militiamen have taken over the mine.
Plan to use the salt mine as their base during the Second American Revolution, which is, they claim, imminent.
More shows still, such as the In Development, We Hate Paul Revere, and Founding Fathers.
The real programming is happening with these shows like Founding Fathers, where the guy that's pro-gun in Texas and leading the militia, he's really Al-Qaeda, which fits into the whole narrative that, oh, it's white Al-Qaeda or gun owners are really Al-Qaeda.
InfoWars has also documented subliminal propaganda in television shows such as AMC's Breaking Bad.
One example is AMC's Breaking Bad television series, as it depicts a meth villain as a Ron Paul supporter.
And we'll end with a clip of Alex Jones warning of such propaganda in his film Road to Tyranny. I'm Jakari Jackson with an InfoWars News Bulletin.
Who was the first terrorist organization in the United States? Who? Founding Fathers. Founding Fathers. You mean Thomas Jefferson?
Look at this guy. You know, he's talking about the Founding Fathers and people that are committed. He's talking about constitutional terrorists. Before that, the cops are so conditioned, they say, who are the terrorists? Who are the first terrorists? The Founding Fathers. They all know. They all say Founding Fathers.
Next story tonight, Obama artist equates gun owners with Satan. Shepard Fairey, the graphic artist synonymous with the Obama Change and Hope images, has taken aim at the Second Amendment by releasing new works that equate gun owners with Satan. Fairey has released a new print titled God Saves and Satan Invests, which depicts an AR-15 rifle with the words, America, the land where God saves and Satan invests, in assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And we've got this image up on the screen now. You can see it in the article on Infowars.com. And on his blog, to go with this new poster, which he's selling, all the proceeds go to gun control advocacy groups. Fairey mentions the recent mass shootings and tries to basically blame them on, you guessed it, the traditional scapegoat, Christianity, stating that the print was, quote, inspired by the multiple school and mass shootings, that's inspired by mass shootings, strange word to use, that have occurred in recent months. Ferry says, quote, "I'm not a big fan of the absurd abundance of guns in the US. I'm also perplexed by the claim of much of the nation to have Christian values. If God tells us to love our neighbor and not to take another human life, where do the assault weapons and piles of ammo fit into these Christian values?" So no mention of the piles of ammo that the federal government, the Obama administration, is stockpiling with the Department of Homeland Security. But he's basically blaming the mass shootings not only on guns, not only on the Second Amendment, but also on the Christian faith, which is kind of odd because the search warrant of Adam Lanza's home has just come out yesterday. There was no Bible there. There was no evidence that Lanza's massacre was fueled by his Christian faith. He wasn't even a practicing Christian. Before him, James Holmes, the Batman shooter, there was no evidence his rampage was fueled by his Christian faith. And then, of course, before him, with the Gifford shooting, Jared Lee Loughner, no evidence to suggest his rampage was prompted or motivated by his Christian faith. And Loughner was actually a pagan. He had occult shrines surrounded by skulls at which he performed little rituals. So far from being a Christian, Loughner was basically a Satanist. He was the opposite. And there's no evidence that Christianity or faith had any motivation in recent mass shootings. So that's complete BS to start off with. So Ferry, and this is a guy, remember, whose posters helped create this contrived cult of messianic personality cult that got Obama elected back in 2008, is now backing the Obama administration's gun control agenda by labeling firearms tools of Satan. And this is what the poster says. So again, while the government arms itself to the teeth, Americans who own guns are being accused of being in league with Beelzebub. And perhaps the best response to this was a comment somebody wrote in response to this poster that's just been released. And again, all the proceeds going to pushing gun control politically. This is what the commenter said. So does Satan investing in assault weapons and high-capacity magazines count for the Department of Homeland Security and their recent order for 1.6 billion rounds of rifle and handgun ammo, 2,700 MRAP vehicles, and 7,000 assault rifles, and their order of no hesitation targets? No, it doesn't apply to that. The government can stockpile weapons en masse. The American people do it. They're in league with the devil, according to Shepard Fairey, the creator of the infamous Hope and Change Obama posters. And this leads us on to our next article. Pat Robertson on DHS arms buildup. Who are they going to shoot? Us? Televangelist Pat Robertson has become the latest prominent conservative to question why the Department of Homeland Security is engaged in an apparent arms buildup, asking if the 1.6 billion bullets purchased by the federal agency will be used against the American people. And here's a clip.
What are they for? The Army going into battle against the enemy? They're used by Homeland Security against us. Ronald Reagan said the most fearful statement in the English language is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you."
Oh boy, I totally agree.
Imagine what Homeland Security is doing. It's just awful. But we're going to talk about how much ammunition they're stockpiling. Who are they going to shoot? Us?
And of course, this was instantly leapt upon by the leftist media, who instead of actually investigating the issue of DHS bullet buys, have taken pot shots at these right-wing demagogues like Pat Robertson and Sarah Palin, because it's easier to do that and dismiss the issue by labeling it a kook right-wing paranoid fantasy than actually investigating the reality of the matter. So the latest to do this was, in fact, the website that posted the Pat Robertson clip, Right Wing Watch, who used it to claim, quote, "The conspiracy about secretive ammo stockpiling is completely unfounded." And what was their source for making that claim? Again, just as with all the other liberal blogs, it was a single quote by a DHS official. because the leftist media somehow thinks that an entire issue can be debunked, not by any kind of real investigation, but by merely trusting the veracity of a glib statement made by a single government official. That's now their standard template for dismissing anything as a conspiracy theory. The government says it's nothing, move along, nothing to see here. They just accept that as gospel, no inquiry, no independent thought. That's it, case closed. But as we've documented at length, the DHS's explanation doesn't add up. They claim that the 1.6 billion bullets are being bought in bulk to save money and are for training purposes only. Yet most of the bullets purchased are hollow point rounds, which are twice as expensive as full metal jackets, therefore completely unsuitable for training purposes and wholly contradictory to the idea of, quote, saving money. Makes no sense whatsoever. They cost double the amount as regular firing range bullets. Makes no sense. And not a single one of these, pathetic debunking hit pieces have even dared to address that contradiction because they can't explain it. I mean, The Atlantic came out and put the whole story down to a hoax email. Didn't even mention the fact that the bullet purchases were taking place. So they'd much rather throw around these pejorative terms and ascribe them to people like Pat Robertson and Sarah Palin, when in fact now over a dozen members of Congress are demanding answers on the issue. There's no mention of that in any of these debunked as a conspiracy theory articles, because they would have to acknowledge that many sober, rational, important people are asking hard questions. So why is the DHS buying so many bullets? As we've documented on many times in the past, one, they're preparing for civil unrest. That's come out in their own documents. They bought riot gear in the past. They've been caught talking about mass influx of illegal immigrants causing domestic unrest. They're preparing for that. But two, they're also trying to restrict the ammo supply in America. There was a weapons manufacturer who supplies the federal government who called into the Michael Savage show earlier this week. We had the article on Infowars.com. And he said that they're doing it. They're buying up all these bullets, or at least committing the manufacturers to withhold the stock. So therefore the market is starved of supply. They're doing it to restrict ammunition supplies. That's why you now have police departments having to literally barter and beg with each other for ammo. And Americans are now literally waiting in crowds outside gun stores across the country for trucks to arrive to deliver the new ammo because the shelves are bare. So this is an end run around the Second Amendment. And who knows, it might not just be a domestic issue. Who knows where else all that ammunition could be heading? Could it be heading to the Middle East? Could it be heading to the rebels in Syria? They armed murderous Mexican drug lords and blamed it on the Second Amendment under Operation Fast and Furious. So why would they stop there? Speaking of Syria, our next story, American terrorist in Syria was working for CIA, says father. The father of U.S. Army veteran Eric Haroon, arrested on Tuesday night by the FBI for fighting alongside an al-Qaeda group in Syria, says his son was working for the CIA. Here's the clip.
I know he was doing some work for the CIA over there, so I don't understand what this is all about, what is going on right now, but I know for a fact that he was passing information onto the CIA.
So while the Obama administration is sending hundreds of millions of dollars, it's now over $500 million in aid to Syrian rebels, which are being led by Jabhat al-Nusra, the group that Haroon was a member of, which is an al-Qaeda group that the New York Times admits killed U.S. troops in Iraq. Its other name is al-Qaeda in Iraq. The FBI is simultaneously arresting Americans who fight alongside that group as terrorists. So if they're in Syria, that's all fine. We'll give them money, we'll give them weapons. They can fight for our regime change. As soon as they get back in the United States, same with Matthew Van Dyke, they're labeled terrorists. And recall that immediately after this group, Jabhat al-Nusra, this al-Qaeda group, was declared a terrorist organization by the State Department back in December. Of course, this is the group that bombs schools, universities, carries out beheadings. Immediately after they were designated a terrorist organization, 29 of the other so-called moderate FSA groups came out and pledged their allegiance to al-Nusra. So the same groups being supported directly by the Obama administration, by the NATO powers, have pledged allegiance and are now being led on the battlefield by al-Qaeda. Your tax money going straight to terrorists to bomb schools, kill little kids, carry out beheadings, ransack Christian churches. It's all good fun. It's all good foreign policy. And of course, the CIA's involvement in aiding, training, and equipping rebel insurgents in Syria is no secret, because as the New York Times reported on Monday, the CIA is now working with Turkey and other Arab governments in the region to oversee a, quote, secret airlift of arms and equipment for the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad. So it's now admitted that the CIA are directly aiding in the shipment of weapons. And of course, the fact that Haroon was arrested by the FBI, despite apparently, according to his father, working for the CIA, most likely reflects on the inter-agency rivalry between the CIA and the FBI. Of course, we know before 9/11, there was a big investigation into the bin Laden family and other terrorists, which Greg Palast reported on. And if that had have been seen through, it may have prevented the 9/11 attack. But the CIA managed to stop it, of course. So while these terrorists are in Syria working with al-Qaeda groups who burn US flags, chop people's heads off, and attack schools, you know, it's all fine and dandy. And don't worry, your tax dollars will continue to pay for it. While they're over there, they're called freedom fighters, but as soon as they come home, they're arrested as terrorists, as Eric Haroon was on Tuesday night. Skynet drones work together for Homeland Security. This is a video I put together last night over at the Prison Planet Live YouTube channel. And they call these drones Skynet, which of course is named after the technocracy in the Terminator franchise of movies, whose goal it was to exterminate humanity. Just a cute little name that they've given these drones. And what you're watching here on the clip is a number of drones that can communicate with each other to accomplish tasks, which in this case is intercepting an object and then throwing it back up in the air and catching it again. And the professor who made this presentation at the Zurich Mines Conference, Professor D'Andrea, admits that the technology could be open to, quote, abuse and is incredibly dangerous. And of course, this ties into the recent DARPA-funded mind meld study involving rats, which we reported on, which is all geared towards DARPA's ultimate goal, which they've admitted, of creating an army of self-aware, communicative battlefield robots, cyborgs, which, as top technology experts like Professor of Robotics Noel Sharkey have warned, will inevitably be used to hunt down and kill people, suspects, terrorists, gun owners, constitutionalists. You get the picture. And we also had the recent report of another drone in development that could be eventually used to snatch protesters off the streets. It's able to swoop down like an eagle, snatch a stationary object off the ground. And these drones are only going to get bigger, they're going to get stronger, they're going to get more sophisticated, and they're all being directed towards this high-tech police state. Aviation expert David Senciotti, speaking about the drones, which Professor D'Andrea put on display recently, expects the drones to be used for, quote, hunting terrorists and other homeland security purposes. So that's where it's all being funneled towards the total technological dictatorship Skynet system. And don't be fooled now by how flimsy these drones appear at present. These are merely the prototypes. As I said, they're going to get bigger and stronger. They're going to be watching you. And eventually, if the control freaks get their way, they're literally going to be throwing nets over people and snatching them off the streets. That's the kind of nightmare we've got to look forward to if we don't stop the development of this technology in that direction. 40-plus officers and ATF agents raid home of YouTube gun personality FPS Russia. This is a report out of gunsavelives.net. And this is a case involving Kyle Myers, a guns and explosives expert who has one of the most popular channels on YouTube called FPS Russia, and I checked it earlier on. 4 million subscribers this guy's got. He's got 500 million views for his videos. Every video he puts out gets several million views at least on YouTube. And this was a raid which took place a few days ago now in connection with the death of Keith Ratliff, who was the owner of FPS Russia. He, of course, died in mysterious circumstances back in January, a gunshot wound to the head, a development that at the time some feared was part of this purge against prominent Second Amendment advocates. And it says, Hart County Sheriff Mike Cleveland said about 50 agents from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms converged on a farm owned by FPS Russia host Kyle Myers and Ratliff. Quote, they were conducting an investigation regarding the explosives the pair were using on their YouTube show. Cleveland said they were blowing up cars and other things in Hart County on their farm. Agents were looking for explosives or anything connected to explosives that would have put them in violation of federal law. So the feds basically admitted that the explosives that were being used for these YouTube videos, where they just basically get massive guns and blow up vehicles, it's all a lot of fun. That's why they get so many million views. They admitted that those explosives were legal up to a certain limit. No arrests were made, and the police, the feds, refused to say if any illegal explosives were found. So it seems to me from the reports that they were invoking the death of Ratliff from back in January as merely an excuse to get on the property of Myers, this FPS Russia host, and raid him. And the question is, since they've discovered nothing illegal, no arrests were made, is it merely part of the continued harassment of prominent Second Amendment advocates that we've seen over the last few months in the aftermath of Sandy Hook and amidst the Obama administration's push for gun control? So is it part of the purge? We'll continue to track that story. That's it for the news. Now we go to the Daily Quote. The First Amendment rejects red tape, cover-up, and doublespeak. That's Roy Barnes, former governor of Georgia. And of course, a lot of people in America would like to water down that concept through political correctness and all manner of other devices. But that's why we're here every night standing up against that kind of control freak mentality. Stick around, because after the break, Rob Dew interviews Gerald Celente on the latest economic crisis news. This is InfoWars Nightly News. Stay tuned.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com.
Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and come and take it on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller Come and Take It t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. Plus the Don't Tread on Me flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the InfoWars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired like I am of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro One high-performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants. So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.